I'm Felina Jean, and this is Black Broads Abroad. I'm an international woman of leisure who said peace out to the United States in 2011, and I have not looked back, except at this ass, honey. Since then, I've lived on 4 continents, but traveled to over 40 countries. Along my journey, I've come to know some very compelling Black women from all over the world who also said fuck you to their comfort zones. I created this podcast to inspire Black women in the diaspora to take risks and live their very best lives.
My mama tried to talk me out of it, but it's like, I'm not about to let this shit ruin my birthday, you feel me? So, I got a couple rules. Real coronavirus shit. Look. C, cover your mouth up when you cough. I ain't taking no chances and you will get socked. O, open my doors with a nappy, cause me getting sick, bitch, it ain't gon' happen. R, remember to bring your own tissue, cause I'm not your fucking mommy and that will be an issue. O, only 9 of y'all coming, cause 1 + 9 = 10, that's a problem. N, nobody getting in without a mask. If you sneeze on me, bitch, I will spaz on your ass. A, act up, you will get snatched up. Feel a little sick, then bitch, you need to back up. I don't got time for no funny shit, and I don't got time for the corona, bitch. Now come turn up if you gon' win, and the hand sanitizer is the fee to get in. Huh. Real coronavirus shit.
Oh, I wanted to start the show out with some levity again, but homegirl had bars, but she indeed is part of the problem. Stay at home, people. No congregating right now. This coronavirus shit is way out of hand, and we have to do our parts in quelling its disbursement like all around the globe. This week, South Africa has been preparing for a 21-day lockdown that officially went into effect on Friday. As I told y'all, I've been ready for over a month. The slightest hint of a global pandemic had me stockpiling necessities well before there were any announcements of global shelter-in-place orders. But the weird thing is, I already work from home, but I've been like far less professionally productive since this pandemic hit. And I'm trying to be gentle with myself about that because I'm a worker mule Capricorn, honey. One thing I did to break up the monotony and quasi-socialize with the people on the internet is tune into Manny Fresh's DJ set last night. Oh my goodness. Club quarantine was lit in my living room. But like one of the things that I'm still perplexed as fuck about is the people that are not practicing social distancing. Like, what don't you guys understand about this shit? And I'm seeing it everywhere. Last weekend, there were a group of zennials in the hundreds in a swimming pool, or like, should I say a cesspool? And they were partying like hard as fucking Durban. Same at a block party in Cape Town last weekend. I saw a clown company in South Central doing an impromptu block party in the middle of the fucking street. My little brother in Atlanta, he went to see his crush. Like, what are you guys doing? This is irresponsible, abominable, reckless, not to mention selfish as fuck. I mean, even Oprah quarantined Stedman's ass to the guest house because he'd been on too many commercial flights, while Sabrina Elba, Idris Elba's wife, is out here willingly and wantonly infected herself. Y'all need to get it together. I beg you. You know, I personally know 3 people who had family members die as a result of this virus. Please take this seriously. And in the meantime, while you're sheltering in place, look at some of the catalogs that have been made available to the public for free. PBS opened up their content catalog. Some of the other streaming platforms have as well. Museums and cultural centers have opened their museums for virtual tours. Libraries nationwide have made audiobooks available, and there's like tons of free webinars in every topic that you could possibly imagine. Free exercise classes, whatever you can do to boost your morale while still staying the fuck at home, do that. And all of this, I know two things to be true. A bitch can't wait to hear Pika Kala because I look like a whole hood rat from the heads. Like, it's looking real ratchet. But if these face mask accessories become essential, you better believe my eye makeup is about to be lit as fuck. Anyway, enough of my rant. Stick around for my interview with Evita Turqoise Robinson, who many of you might already be familiar with, but she is the founder of NOMADNESS Travel Tribe, the first of its kind platform and business catered to Black millennial travel. She really is a pioneer in this space, and I'm not really sure if she gets her props for that. So stick around for that interview. But first,
let me tell y'all motherfuckers what happened last week.
here in South Africa, where I am, we currently have the highest recorded number of coronavirus cases with over 1,200 people who are infected. Rwanda, who you guys know, like, I'm a big fan of Kagame, the president there. He was a very early adapter in preparing for this pandemic, even before some Western countries and so-called first world countries hopped on the bandwagon and finally started making provisions. Rwanda, they've had a shelter in place for their citizens for almost 2 weeks, and they've closed the borders. I think the borders have been closed for at least 3 weeks. But the president is now providing food and basic provision deliveries to all of its citizens and residents. While Nigeria has finally, just in the past 2 days, closed its borders and is beginning to prepare for this global pandemic. I mean, they took such a laissez-faire approach. They were really like the latest adapters on the continent. It's really a shame. Meanwhile, while other Western nations are providing monetary support to their citizenry, including England, who's paying people 80% of their salary, Denmark is paying 75% of their citizens' salary, Canada is giving out $2,000 per month, and your American government is giving the people a one-time $1,200 check. What exactly is that going to do in the long run? I have shoes and wigs that cost that much, and they gonna have to come way better than that. That little one-time check is not gonna go but so far in major metropolitan areas. For those of my listeners that are currently living outside of the United States, I got a message from the Democrats abroad. And they basically are saying Americans abroad who meet the income eligibility criteria with an income of less than $99,000 are entitled to the recovery rebate of up to $1,200 plus a payment of $500 per child. I just know the people in the States who sold their kids to somebody else to collect a tax rebate on. They gonna be some salty when that person is collecting $500 for their child. But I digress. For those listeners that do live abroad and are not signed up for my newsletter, please do so because I release pertinent information every week and I have outlined how you can get your check, okay? In other coronavirus news, Washington Post reports that the U.S. government currently has 1.5 million N95 respirator masks sitting in an Indiana warehouse. They have no plans of making the mask available to hard-hit hospitals or hand them over to FEMA. This is absolutely abysmal. An Iranian official is actually reporting that Americans, i.e. your president, is weaponizing the coronavirus in Iran. Iranian accounts have been frozen by the United States urging in Korea, Japan, and Luxembourg. President Trump is telling these governments not to allow the Iranian government to purchase essential medical equipment. This brand of spitefulness is so uncalled for. Like, why punish innocent people? Your president needs to be more concerned that His latent response to this pandemic has caused more Americans to die than have died in the war in Afghanistan in 2 decades. And if the numbers continue along this trajectory, more Americans will have died from the virus than the decade-long Vietnam War. This piecemeal, ad hoc, county by county approach is not going to combat this virus. No other developed nation or emerging nation, for that matter, is addressing this crisis city by city. There needs to be a national uniform response, period. And of course, unfortunately, this pandemic presents prime opportunities for pimps postulating as preachers. There was a rumor that Atlanta pastor Creflo Dollar, who I like to call Cash Flow Dollar, set up a cash app for his parishioners. That rumor was actually debunked, but it's not above him, seeing as how he took up a collection plate for his personal private jet some years ago. Anyway, a televangelist of colonizer complexion went on TV and had this to say about his parishioners continuing to pay tithes.
Fear of this coronavirus is faith in its ability to hurt you or kill you. The fear of what are we going to do? I'm getting laid off at work. Hey, your job's not your source. If it is, you're in trouble. Jesus is your source.
Which Jesus would that be? Black Jesus or white Jesus? Because I'm pretty sure that Yahshua ben Yosef, that first century Palestinian Jew, would have told me to stay my ass at home. But that's not it. He went on to say,
Whatever you do right now, don't you stop tithing. Don't you stop sowing offerings. Well, they won't let us go to church. Well, email it in there, text give or something, but you get your tithe in that church. If you have to go take it down there and drop it off and stick it under the door or something, you get that tithe in that church, you get that offering in that church, and then you go home and you do what we're supposed to do.
My Rasta brethren has some words for you.
Hang him, bumbleclot! On the light post, make the world can't see him up there. You pussy hole, you fucking wicked Batman bumbleclot.
And that's just that on that. Thanks for tuning into the news segment. And that's it for...
Let me tell y'all motherfuckers what happened last week.
Until next time. With a background in television, video production, and fine art, Evita has always been a creator in visual media. Yet it was a trip to Paris 6 weeks after graduating from Iona College that changed the scope of her personal and professional life. In September 2011, she created the NOMADNESS Travel Tribe, an online social community primarily for travelers of color. NOMADNESS was the first of its kind targeting Black and Brown millennials in the newly coined Black travel movement. The group currently surpasses 23,000 international members with over 100,000 passport stamps. From the success of the online group, Evita has garnered partnerships with top brands and destinations around the world. This also includes Issa Rae, who co-executive produces the NOMADNESS Project web series on YouTube. In 2018, NOMADNESS Travel Tribe hosted their first festival for Black and Brown travelers and our allies in Oakland, California. Audacity Fest is an immersive experience that celebrates and creates a safe space for discussions centered around traveling the world as a person of color. Panels, fireside chats, rock climbing, music, and break-off sessions included. Past festivals have been in Oakland and Memphis, with 2020 being held August 20th through the 23rd in New York City. Continuing to innovate the travel space has landed NOMADNESS in the print and digital pages of the New York Times, Travel and Leisure, Entrepreneur, The Daily Beast, Ebony, Essence, and many more publications. Evita's accolades include National Geographic's 21 Most Visionary Women Throughout Travel History, 2018's Afar Travel Guard Vanguard Award, the Route 100, and being noted as one of Entrepreneurs Magazine's 50 Most Daring Entrepreneurs of 2018. She is also an appointed board member of Condé Nast Travelers Women Who Travel Initiative.
She can be seen between news panels and business features for CNN, Cheddar, MSNBC, True TV, News One, and Oxygen Channel. Evita was also invited to the White House under the Obama administration for their meeting on World's Creative Changemakers for South by Southline. She now serves as a keynote/seminar speaker, TED resident, consultant for destination marketing organizations, and continues her love of seeing the world while writing her first book and developing her own travel television series. Welcome, Evita.
Thank you. That's
oh my gosh. This is like, you know what? It's so crazy to read your bio.
It's crazy to hear it.
It is bananas.
Yeah. It's been a lot over the last like 9 years. We turned 9 in September, and I just, I kind of just think about the wild, wild west days is what I call it, of
the OG days
in the beginning. And it's just like to see the growth and the community and just, what we've been able to do literally across the globe has been pretty dope.
So I'm just going to give like a quick backstory of how you even came into my orbit. So in September 2011, I was living in Brazil at the time, and somebody added me to this Facebook group, and there were like 50 people in there at the time, and everybody was like a different continent or just, come back from some epic millennial pilgrimage. And we just related to each other in a way that was like, oh my goodness, it was really, well, it still is a tribe. But I mean, just those early stages, it was like I never connected with complete strangers in like such a profound way. So thank you for, creating this group.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It's a labor of love for sure.
So what was the impetus behind the creation of NOMADNESS Travel Tribe in the first place?
It started really from me being a 3-time expat. So before I started NOMADNESS, I had lived in Paris, I had lived in Thailand, and I had lived in Niigata, Japan for various amounts of time. And for me, it was about wanting to find more people that I felt like I could identify with, more, Black and brown folks that looked like me, that had travel as a part of their, it was a priority for them. I think, especially now with the current climate of everything that's going on, travel definitely has this, luxury type placement in most people's lives. But I would even offer over that there are some people where it's really embedded in the DNA, and it's an active part of their life. It's an active part of their self-care. It's an active part of their even jobs, how they live, if they're location independent. I've met too many people, dynamic people and families through NOMADNESS for me to, at this point in my life, brush it off as something that is just deemed a luxury. It really is a part of people's lives in varying capacities. And so for me, I think it's about showing up in that space at a time where I was like a backpacker out there doing it on my own, bartending around the world, teaching English in Niigata, Japan, and just really wanting to see more people like me. I'd say it's funny because I was in Japan in 2010. I had moved out there to teach a year of English 2019 from 2009 to 2010. And I just this past March of 2019 went back for like what was kind of like a 10-year reunion. I was turning 35 years old, so it was a significant age. I turned 25 when I was there. So these very just like significant ages had happened in Niigata, Japan. And it was my first time. I had been back to Tokyo, but I hadn't gone back to Niigata in a decade. So I made the trip with my best friend was with me, who I also met through Tribe. And it was so eye-opening just kind of going through my old stomping grounds and literally like finding my old apartment by sight because I didn't have the address on me, renting a car and just kind of driving, meeting some of my friends there that now have kids. And I told my friend when we ended up in the complex of my old apartment. And I told her, I said, it all makes sense now. I was extremely isolated when I lived in Japan. extremely isolated. The language barrier, I didn't live in a Tokyo where people readily spoke English. I had almost nobody around me in my immediate area to actually like just converse with, you know, just talk to.
Yeah.
And I remember the level of anxiety that I had living there. And that was at a time where my like panic attacks were like high. And there were days where I remember one day waking up from a panic attack and literally just jumping up out of bed, grabbing my keys and just running.
Where did you run to? Wait, hold up.
I actually ran to a shrine.
Wow.
And I just sat on the steps of the shrine. I was crying and just like kind of bringing my heart rate and everything down and just trying to like get my bearings about myself. But there were a lot of like trying moments in Japan when it came to the feeling of isolation. And it's interesting having this interview now because I think many of us are feeling levels of isolation right now, having to stay within our own homes and, you know, everything that's kind of being asked of us in this moment, you know, with the coronavirus. But for me, it was, you know, I was going through real shit when I lived in Japan, and the level of isolation that I had was the impetus for creating the level of community that I was preparing myself to go after. And I did not know that in the moment.
Yeah.
I didn't know that in the moment. And it was really going back with Eris and like literally standing in the parking lot and being in front of the door of this like tiny apartment that I stayed in for a year by myself, and to just look now a decade later, like I never would have imagined myself standing outside of that door 10 years in the future. And to be there and to know all I do and to have endured and gone through everything I have, like it made sense that I went to create community because the level of isolation that I had there was just like on some other shit. And so that was my remedy.
Yeah, like living in a homogeneous society is definitely, I mean, I had that experience like living in Korea. It's just so homogeneous. Like the level of isolation is surreal. That's crazy that you had such a compulsion to get out the fucking bed and run to a shrine. That's crazy. Whoa, that was the ancestors, honey. They was like, get your black ass up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes it happens, and I don't fight stuff like that. You know, I don't fight it. I don't judge it. You know, it just kind of is what it is. And at that point in time, I had also dealt with anxiety and panic attacks for so long. It had been a number of years at that point that I kind of like, I trust my body when it tells me what it needs to. And for me, I think that was just the biggest thing. And so, yeah, there was a lot of that in the beginning years because I think people assume that I went into creating NOMADNESS with a plan, and I really didn't. It was very organic. It was very about the people. It was very homegrown. It was about breaking down these like economic barriers and all this shit. Like when I started, like NOMADNESS trips were like a couple $100s because I was like so adamant about like, you know, having something that somebody in my financial position at that point in time, because I was broke, like could afford, but also that could like bring people together. And I used to always say one of the coolest things about NOMADNESS trips for me is that you could have like a self-made millionaire on a trip next to like a recent college graduate. And in no other place would those two people be traveling together. And it was really cool to kind of see the interactions and how community comes together in that way when you break down all the other barriers that kind of like separate us normally.
So you are the first person, let me give you your props, the first,
Thank you.
the first, okay, to advocate Black millennial travel and establish a platform for it. And there's been like so many offshoots of the brand that quite honestly you created. So I have a question, like, one, do you feel that you get the credit for being a pioneer in this space?
I think I do now. I think for a long time I didn't, and it was very hard to deal with that. On an intrinsic level, I am a Aries A-type personality New Yorker. I am extremely about it with my shit and very possessive and very protective, you know? And I'm also an artist, right? Like people think I didn't come from a business background. Like my degree was in television and video production. I'm a liberal arts brat. You know, my minor was in literally fine arts, painting and shit. Like I burn sage and have crystals and, you know, choose to be zen in moments where other people would pop off. Like I'm very creative in that space. And that's my my safe space, but that's also my instinct is, you know, creativity. And as creators, you know, we open ourselves, you know, we expose our guts and we create things that we hope people connect to. So when you do that and you put yourself in that vulnerable position and you do it naively, like I was very naive coming into this, you know, just like it's going to be great and everybody's going to be great. And, and then you start to really see all sides of people. It can be hurtful. And there were definitely, the early years were very, very trying for me because I was young. I didn't know what this was. I didn't even go into this starting a business. Like that was not my thought pattern. There was no business plan in place, like none of that shit. When I say that this was organically grown, like that is just, it don't get no more organic than that. This is like some NOMADNESS is some like shot of wheatgrass type shit, like homegrown. Okay. And so to be in that vulnerable space and to open up and allow a space for people, and then to have folks that are inside of it take advantage of you, to have people attack you and talk shit about you, to have people copy you and poach people directly from your group, that shit was hurtful. It was hurtful. And a lot of times I felt like it was highly unnecessary. You know what I'm saying? And what made me know that there was a subset of folks that were going about it the wrong way is because what also started to come up during that time were people who went about it the right way. And those are the people that to this day I still rock with. And people that I still admire and people that I will go.
Who do you still rock with?
I mean, I still rock with a number of people. The list is very much shorter on who I don't. But like a Sonia Lioness is somebody that comes to bucket list feast. She's somebody that comes to mind for me. Somebody who was just like, yo, like, I want to have my own angle to this. Obviously, we're going to have people overlap, but it was just something as simple as a message that she hit me with. Like, yo, this is an idea I have. I give you so much props for what you've done. It's just literally there was a lot of common decency. You know, because I'm not a diva. Like I'm not, but just
no, you're
common
actually not. You're
like,
not really.
I'm not. Like I'm hella approachable. I'm super dorky at times. You know, it takes a lot to really stir me up. Like I'm not, you know, I'm really approachable. Like I think I'm cool as shit. But this is the thing with me, right? Like if I rock with you, I rock with you. And if I don't, I don't. And
that's how I am
what
too.
It is.
That's how I am too. I only lie to the police. You don't never have to know if I like you or if I don't. Ever.
Yeah, exactly. And I can show face, like I can be cordial with folks all day, you know, but it's all about preserving my energy. You know, the unfortunate part is that yes, I have had people literally take from me, literally. But the positive part of it is, the bigger part of it is that it's never stopped me, you know. If anything, it's fueled me more. So I'm grateful for that. And I've been able to partner and witness and work with people who have gone about the growth of the greater community, even outside of Tribe, this whole Black and Brown travel movement. I've been able to see them flourish and be a support system because I also know that there's levels to this. I am in a position and have worked my ass off to be in a position where now I am in rooms that they're not in. I'm in rooms that they may never get the opportunity to be in. But now I can be an advocate. I can be an advocate for the people that are about their shit and have, you know, been altruistic and been on the up and up for this past decade. Now I'm in an even deeper position to be able to put you on. And I do that a lot with a lot of like mentees, a number of other travel organizations, travel influencers. I'm a huge fan of what I call the sophomore class of the Black travel movement, because I see myself and some others as kind of like, we were the foundation, right? We
Yeah.
came in as the freshman class. We laid the foundation for what all these like travel influencers are able to like come out the gate, just like guns blazing. They got the tech savvy shit. They're on Instagram. They're rocking. The brands are like, yeah, we want you. Like, they're getting contracts from companies that we were knocking on doors, and I was personally cold calling for years that would not even look in our direction.
Are you serious? Damn, they didn't even have
You know
to
what I'm
put in
saying?
no,
Like,
because we came in through the
but
era
that's,
when like before Instagram was even in it, well, there was no Instagram.
yeah, it wasn't
when
Instagram. Literally,
there was no
NOMADNESS was started. Yeah, I started NOMADNESS Travel Tribe in September of 2011, and Instagram wasn't even an entity at that time. It wasn't an
No.
entity. It didn't exist. And Facebook capabilities for groups has just evolved so much and updated so much in the last 9 years, you know, that every time we talk about leaving the platform, they do some new shit to just make it that much easier to kind of just like sit still for a second, you know, like, but it's just tech has evolved. The movement has evolved. I think if anything, I'm grateful for this next class because it proved what I was saying in the earlier days when it really was just us, which was that this isn't going anywhere. It's only getting bigger, you know, it's only going to grow. And when I see them and they, you know, they've said shit like, and, you know, I'm like, you know, the fairy, like the godmother of the Black travel movement, like they look to me as a mentor. And I love their creativity. I love their vigor. I hire them.
Oh, that's
Like
good.
for our
Yeah.
social media, I hire them because
Yeah.
there is just a liveliness to their energy. And it's not the people that be quite honest with you, it's this new generation and new class that makes me realize that all the shit that I went through was worth it.
Oh, that's
Like
good.
where NOMADNESS is and this new class are really the ones that are just like, you know what, like this is why you keep going. This is why you keep innovating and risk taking. This is why, you know, you follow your own path and put blinders on to whatever the hell everybody else is doing. And this is why you went through what you went through. My homegirl Dawn Dixon is like, I love Dawn, and she's also a mentor of mine. Dawn was like, there were two things that got me over my ego, because part of it is ego too. Like you feel like somebody's coming at something that you created, and so you seize up. It's your ego, you're protecting it. She said, it's dope to be the first person through the door, but the point is to set it up so that you're not the last. If you're the first person through the door and there isn't 100th after you, then did you really do? And I think at approaching 36 years old, because my birthday's coming up, at approaching 36 years old, I've been able to understand the wisdom behind that theology, and understanding that is really the mark of a movement. You know, people use the word movement too much. Like that's the mark of to me, you have to be anointed as a movement. I didn't come out the gate talking about NOMADNESS as a movement. I didn't know what the fuck NOMADNESS was, to be completely honest with you.
I can't
Other
believe
people
it's been
started
9
calling
years.
it a movement. Yeah, other people
believe
started
it's
calling
9
it a movement first. And I think that that's the type of thing that you have to be anointed by somebody else. That shouldn't come from you first. And the other thing, in the midst of the you know, the growing pains, that's what I call it now, the growing pains of NOMADNESS, I was watching Dave Chappelle's Inside the Actor Studio. Inside the Actor Studio, RIP to James Lipton, is like one of my favorite shows ever. And Dave's is one of my favorite. And I've actually spoken to Dave since I saw this and told him this to his face. Like, Dave had this quote, and he was talking about Richard Pryor in the episode. And it was the quote that said, the mark of greatness is when everything before you is obsolete and everything after you bears your mark. And when I heard that at one of my like darkest times building out NOMADNESS, I was like, that quote alone completely changed my entire thought process towards competition, towards the people that have come up from me. It completely changed. It was literally me hearing that change the game for me, because I was just like, this is what it is. The mark of genius is when everything before you is obsolete. There, like you said, there was none of this before NOMADNESS. And when
None of
everything
it.
after you bears your mark,
Yeah.
that is what happens, because people don't know what it's like to be first. If you know what it's like to be second, you still don't know what it's like to be first. First comes with a lot of shit, because people are learning through your mistakes. They're capitalizing on your mistakes, and your mistakes are your learning process. You got to go through it. You got to. There ain't no way around it. But, you know, you're charting the path and you're in the jungle with the machete first. And so people are watching you. And they're like, all right, cool. Thanks for clearing up this path. Like, you know, and they're right behind you. And there is a weird relationship with that. There is a weird relationship with that. And so it took me years, to be quite honest with you, Felina. It took me years to come to peace with that, to come to peace with other people. And to hear that quote from Dave Chappelle, and to realize that, you know, No Madness was the beginning. We were the mark of greatness, and therefore it makes sense that everything that comes after us is going to be inspired by us. And it tempered everything for me. I'm really grateful I came across it.
Yeah, it's crazy because, you know, I went really low. Like I had no social media presence for like 5 years. So when I like re-emerged, I was like, yo, I had no idea there were like all of these offset brands. I was like, yo, this is crazy. I didn't realize how vast the landscape was until very recently, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So, on to like a bit of a lower note. One of the tragedies that occurred in by the way, this is when I knew I fucked with you. I mean, I fucked with you anyway, just from being like an early adapter of No Madness. But when that tragedy occurred in Panama, where members were like, unfortunately, you know, killed, you galvanized like in less than 24 hours, had feet on the ground. Like, I was like, man, like I really fucked with you the long way. I really appreciate your thorough response to such a tragedy. So what have been some of the like defining moments that have helped you grow, like while building this platform, like grow personally?
Right. I mean, Panama was one of them for sure. And that was about what, 4 or 5 years in. So, you know, we're on the equal ends of outside of that tragedy as we were having the same amount of numbers in at this point right now. And you have to decide what kind of leader you are. And there's no wrong answer to that. There really isn't. But people have to really, really, really sit down with themselves, you know, think about what type of leader you are. Are you better behind the scenes and, you know, somebody kind of else being the face of your brand? Or are you going to really show up for folks, right? Because I mean, even speaking to a lot of the offshoot brands, I was like really flabbergasted during that situation that of all the travel groups that all of these human beings were a part of and the way that people cape, why was No Madness the only group that was down there? That really, really bothered me. It bothered me a lot.
That is a very
Why were we the only ones on the ground? Why was I the only one at everybody's funeral? Why was my team down there? It wasn't even an official No Madness trip. This was just a group of travelers that so happened to be in No Madness that this tragedy happened to while they were there of their own accord. So there was no actual call for us to go down there. That we were down there because of the type of leader I am and the type of team that we had. And to this day, I give all praise due to my team, to even former teams, because a number of those people don't work with me anymore, and I will never take anything away from them. An amazing group of people that was on the former High Council.
Yeah.
And, you know, particularly to Callie and Macario for actually physically coming down there, you know, that was a mark of, okay, not only what kind of leader are you, but what type of community are we really, folks? Like, are we in here just bullshitting? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, we got the travel facts and all this other shit. Are we really about what we talk about? And And these people proved to me and gave me the energy at a time where I was shattered. I was shattered. Looked like I had my shit together and I was keeping it together. I was shattered for an extended period of time behind the Panama accident. Shattered. It showed me that this community could come together. Like, yeah, I was down there and boots were on the ground within 24 hours, but within 4 days, we had crowdfunded like $64,000 to pay for everybody's hospital bills and get everybody who could be out. I said, I'm giving it a week. I went down there with an agenda. I said, in 1 week, I want everybody who can leave out of here. And literally that following Friday, Jasmine was the last person who could leave that was flown out, flown to New York City, and then picked up in an ambulance and taken right to NYU Medical. And it was just like, to see the way that everybody came together. I'm also one of these people that I'm very eerily calm in like super chaotic situations. Like, I may turn up way lesser, but when it comes to like very, very serious stuff, like really, really bad and emotional things, it's almost like I become bigger in size internally. My senses heighten. I get very quiet. I get very focused, and I get very action oriented and very solution driven. That's what happens to me. That's how I feel, and I don't know if this is true. My therapist may be able to chime in on it, but I think that's actually a part of my healing process, is that I have to be in action. I have to be part of the solution. I think it's a part of how I deal with shit. And so, you know, that was a time, you know, where we had to come up. And I think I've never seen community come together in that way. And it just so happened that at the same time that the accident happened, we had an article about us that was going viral on the Daily Beast. So the Daily Beast caught wind of what happened, and they allowed us to actually put like our PayPal information attached to the article that was going viral.
Oh, wow.
And we were getting donations from like everything. Like when I tell you, Felina, when I tell you that everybody came together, everybody like came together in our community. And it was just one of the most tragic, yes, but also one of the most powerful and the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. With that said, I would never wish those circumstances on anybody. Like, I wouldn't wish them on an enemy. That shit is just like, was like otherworldly. And, you know, it's been amazing to even see, you know, again, people that I support that are also doing offshoot brands like Kina. Kina is one of our cheerleaders. Kina is one of our ambassadors. Like, she's one of our biggest advocates. And now she has her own travel company. And there are a number of people that go on her trips that are from NOMADNESS, but you go about it the right way and you're just a good person, and it's all love. Promote her forever until I'm blue in the face.
She's here in Johannesburg too.
Yeah, I know. She moved, and it's just like, I love Kina.
Yeah, I saw her at the hospital because, you know, Clara broke her leg in like whitewater rafting in Zambia or something. But yeah, I saw her here.
I love Kina. I love Kina.
I hear good things about her. I don't really know her that well though. So it's been amazing to witness the trajectory of your career, and you've managed to grow your brand into international speaking engagements, consulting, curated trips, the media platform, cosmetic ventures, and now you have the Audacity Fest. I don't know what's going on with that amidst the coronavirus, but can you explain like what is the Audacity Fest and what is its mission?
Yeah, definitely. And you may hear my cat in the background. Sorry.
It's okay.
He like just busted into there. There's 2 of them, so be prepared. But so the Audacity Fest was really it's like a second iteration of a conference that we used to do in New York. Started back in 2015. And essentially what it was is we wanted to take the conversations that we were, you know, not even curating, because Tribe is very free form, but the conversations that we were seeing in NOMADNESS and bring them to life in real life. And so we did during what we dubbed anniversary weekend every year, because we would also throw like a huge anniversary party in New York. we did a conference, and I wanted to scale that. I wanted to make it, again, I'm a creative first, right? So I'm full of ideas. Like, the ideas never stop coming. It's about what we can execute and when. The idea of doing a festival, even a block party, had kind of like come up to me. There were all these different iterations of things that were in my brain. And I was like, I'm also tired of being a keynote or being tour speaking at these travel conferences and being one of only like a small handful of people of color, and I mean of color legitimately, like Asian, Black, like, like across the board. A lot of the industry is very whitewashed. A lot of the events that I speak at and kind of like stir up the feathers at in my keynote are very whitewashed as well. And so for me, I was just like, you know what? I just want to take this entire experience and flip it on its neck and make an event that scales, that's about us, features us, is for us. And, our allies can come if they're not of color, but like they know what they're walking into. Like, it's time for us to own our own space. And essentially the same way that I did it in tech with Nomadness in the group, I just wanted to bring it to life. And it was also, again, creating an extension and an olive branch to be able to give a platform and showcase like the branch off companies and brands and influencers that we do rock with. It was like, yo, like, come through, apply to be a speaker. Let's get everybody together. And it is like everybody, like the ways that people have been describing Audacity Fest is like, it's like soul food. And a lot of people have said, yo, it's like the family reunion version of every travel conference that you've ever been to in your life. Like, these are actual quotes from people, attendees as well as speakers, that are like, yo, like, we have speakers like Glow Antamo is one of our top like influencers that comes. She's spoken both years. She literally was like, yo, I was waiting for you to drop your dates for Audacity Fest so that I could plan my summit around those dates, because I do not want them to conflict, because I will be at Audacity Fest every year that you have it. Like, these are the types of feedback that we're getting. Like, it's bomb. It's bomb. And I'm not just saying it because we throw it, but it's bomb and it's fun and it's us. Like, it is us. And so the first one that we did was in Oakland, California, like you said, in 2018. We just did our second one last September in Memphis, and it's slated for summertime, August 20th to the 23rd in NYC. Like you said, with coronavirus, actually, we just had a meeting with our team yesterday. We're in that weird time frame of like, okay, how long is this going to stick around? How long isn't it? And even when it's up, like, are people going to be traveling like that? So we're in talks right now on either postponing it or turning it digital and making that pivot. So we're just feeling it out. I think there's a lot of just universal and worldwide uncertainty right now, which is fair, and so we haven't made any hardcore decisions. There will definitely still be an Audacity Fest this year. It just may change in either the platform or the date may be pushed back. Those are pretty much the two options that we're looking at right now. Doesn't get better, sooner rather than later. But the festival is just amazing. And even like I said, bringing in all the influencers, but even the panels and the things that we talk about. We have a medical panel. I mean, we've had panels where we've actually spoken about the Panama accident, because I'm a huge advocate on people having like, signing up with the embassy, people having travel health insurance, and all of these things that people take for granted that we had to go through, making sure that your next of kin has a passport. We had one person in the Panama accident who unfortunately passed away. Nobody in his family had a passport, and his ex-girlfriend had to come as a next of kin to like identify his body and bring his belongings back. Like, you do not want to put somebody in that position. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, the things that we learned, the only silver lining that you can pull from it is the lessons to make sure people are equipped, hoping that it never happens again. But if something does happen again, you know what I'm saying? You don't want people to make the same mistake twice. And so we have made it, a very concerted and conscious effort to make sure that any lessons that we learn through the course of Nomadness, that comes out in some type of content. We have body positivity panels for, Chubby Diaries, Jeff Jenkins, who I adore, was on that panel. Annette Richmond is doing amazing shit when it comes to like women and body positivity and travel. We've had traveling with disabilities panels. We've had Traveling Under Trump 2.0, showcasing like Syrian American, Muslims, African Americans on that panel about what it's like traveling, with stigmas that this president has put out forth into the world, and how it was different traveling under previous administrations and his administration. We've had Tiffany, the Budgetnista, come through and do a financial planning for travel workshop with our people. We have people from Lonely Planet and National Geographic doing photo workshops or travel writing workshops. Like, it ain't just about getting folks together. Like, our content is A1. And so like, it's worth it. And nobody and no brand is doing this in our demographic. I'm big on seeing where there's a gap and fitting my ass right there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how I am, and innovating and, all of that stuff. I get bored, going back to the Aries A-type personality. I get bored easily. That is my blessing and my curse. But it's my blessing because it always makes me think about stuff. Like, you brought up the, cosmetic stuff. When I started Compass by Evita, the lipstick line, literally it was like, there was one time where I was like, I want something for me. Like, I give so much to community that sometimes I forget about myself. I have to be very conscientious about making sure I take care of me. And so I wanted to make money off of something that was to me. So I made a short list of things that I really like. And I've always loved a pop of color on my lips, and I like matte lipstick. Even if I don't wear any other makeup, I will love a pop of color.
That's been my thing since day one. Yeah.
That's been my thing since like high school. Like, I'm just like, I do not need to go through this full, YouTube tutorial of makeup. Give me like a real funky pop of color, and that's all I want and all I need. And so that's where, the whole idea for Compass by Evita came up, with these colors, and then, attaching them, naming them after different places around the world that mean something to me, and then also pairing them with nonprofits so that a portion of the proceeds of every lipstick goes back and is donated to a nonprofit in that community. Like, the giving back, the secular community, like, even in the scope of lipstick, something so simple. There is a travel international about the people community component for me, because that's just who I am. That's where I get my lifeline and like, for the most part, I love people, and I'm fascinated by people, and I'm fascinated by our story. This year is going to be very big on content for me. We were talking before the interview started about like the podcast that I'm going to be launching, especially now that everybody's kind of like landlocked at home. But it's just like, I love people and I love people's stories. I just think we're so fascinating. And I think that we have more alike, and we learn so much from people and kind of get out of our own ego and our own id by connecting with one another. And that's just very important to me. And that's just my shit. And I've been doing it since I was a kid, throwing house parties when I was 15. Like, literally, I have been doing this my whole life. And for whatever reason, my homework that I was brought with on this earth was to connect people.
You definitely did that, because I mean, like, to be fair, like, when new people started joining the group, like, the OGs were like, who are these people? We did feel that way, and some of us bowed out, but it's been like,
y'all were clear about it.
Yeah, we were like, who are y'all? Time out. But it's been beautiful to see, like, from being in that core group of 50 in the beginning to you now having like almost 25,000 people in your group. It's amazing. So,
thank you. Yeah.
Travel changes everyone. Travel changes us intrinsically, especially living in a foreign environment. And Ashley and I had this conversation about being confronted with who we are. And I know for me, like, after nearly a decade of being an expat, I feel foreign at home. How has I totally feel foreign at home. How is traveling, and particularly like having immersive global experiences, changed you? Because you've you've lived on like 3 or 4 continents, right?
Mm-hmm. I think I take a little bit of everywhere I've been and bring it home and curate home. Home is very important to me. I need a home base. Some people are like nomads for real.
Nah, I'm
And
not about that life.
yeah, I think that,
Not
but
no
it's for
more.
people and I get it.
Yeah.
But I need home. Like I say, home is where my cats are, you know, like until I have kids. Even if when I have kids, they can actually maneuver and come with me faster than my pets can. So it's like whatever. But I just like home is very significant to me, especially the home that I'm in now. I moved to Newark, New Jersey about almost 4 years ago, to be
Are
4
you in
years in
Newark?
August. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep. I moved to Newark almost 4 years ago. And that move was very significant for me. Moving in the middle of a breakup, ironically, but I was also moving because it was the first time that I made the conscious decision. I was like, I need my actual surroundings, like my living space and even the neighborhood I live in, to be indicative of the growth that I've had both professionally and personally. You know, I had like 4 roommates by the time I had left the apartment that I was in the Bronx. And it was a great setup for like the house. It wasn't just like we weren't on top of each other, but it was just like, it was a lot, you know, and you get out and you're getting older and you want your own space. And I'm thinking about motherhood and I want a family and children. It was just like, you know, it's time to really have that. I also have always dreamed about living in a loft. And I was finally able to get my loft, you know? So there were just a lot of like grown up, you know, big girl panty decisions that needed to be made in that time. And so for me, I've been able to curate home and bring my own style and to bring, you know, whether it's artwork or gifts and, you know, things like that from around the world to make my home. And so to me, it's very important because yes, travel is a huge part of my life, but I'm also in this like another iteration of Evita Turqoise Robinson that wants to, you know, curate home and curate family and, you know, and relationships. And that stuff is becoming just as important and in some respects more important than the business, like for the first time in my life. And so I love it. I love bringing it. I love being able to go out into the world and have these experiences and share them. But I also very much appreciate that I have a home that is like mine right now. That's important to me. So yeah, I think that's how it's changed me by adding to my life and adding to what I home to be. You always think with a worldly view, you know, you look at stuff differently, especially like whether it's everything from politics to education systems and, you know, all of that. You know, my most recent relationship was with somebody who lives in France. And it's just like, you know, even just talking to him about the differences in, you know, everything from education to healthcare and all this other stuff, you know, even the books I'm reading about parenthood and motherhood, they are from an international point of view. I have like a whole international section on motherhood, you know, reading, you know, bringing up Bebe about like what it's like in France. And, you know, I have one on Danish and how like they're noted as the happiest kids on earth. And this is why. I have all of these international perspectives. So you approach life completely different.
Yeah, and your
and I think it's
children will
cool.
be third culture kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those kids are fascinating. Like
from young ages, you know, I actually say this in my keynotes. I tell people, I said, imagine me as your mother. And they laugh for a second and then they stop and they think about it. I said, exactly. And this is why you guys need to get hip to what's happening in this diversity and inclusion. Because in the beginning with NOMADNESS, like I was 27 when I started NOMADNESS. And we were like the genesis, right, of this for the millennial demographic. Now, all of those people that were in my age demographic, you know, more or less, have had children. These children don't have to wait for that one person at 27 years old to bring this to them. They are now, you know, they're the offspring of the parents that were a part of this movement, that still are a part of this movement, which means they're going to be traveling from birth. So there's this entire shift socio and economically that's happening to the travel industry. So for destinations, destination marketing associations, brands that don't get that, they are missing a wave that is happening, a complete wave. And that's what I tell them. Like, imagine me as your mother and understand that there are so many more of me across the board that are having babies that are being born literally into the world. You know, we didn't have that. A lot of us had to venture off and go do it on our own before a lot of our parents did. And that's not the case anymore. The millennials, we are the generation that created this shift in Black travel. And it's never going to go backwards because this is embedded in us, and we're bringing our kids up in this as well.
Wow. What's the biggest lesson that you've learned about stepping outside of your comfort zone?
There's no such thing as perfection. I think whoever came up with the notion, definition, idea of perfection needs to be like dragged out and shot somewhere, because the amount of pressure and stress that it can, for me, it manifests as like pressure and stress. I think for the general public, it manifests as analysis paralysis. They just don't move. I move, but I'll be stressed, you know, trying to attain something that's unattainable, you know. But I think most people, they just get so scared and overwhelmed that they just don't do shit, you know, and that's dangerous. That's more dangerous. And so for me, I think they're understanding that perfection is a journey. If NOMADNESS started off the way that I thought it was going to be in my brain at that time, like what my ideal idea of perfection would be, the shit would have concaved years ago. You know, I think being okay with flexibility, being okay with change and innovation, not being so rigid, keeping it lean, not putting too many of your eggs in one basket, being playful, you know, like I like to play with my team, you know, like, let's approach this shit as a project. Let's try it. If it works, it doesn't. I see everything as a project. Audacity Fest was a project. Literally, our web series is called the NOMADNESS Project. That shit was by design, because it takes some of the pressure off, you know? Like, when I think of projects, I think of like elementary school, you know, we're going to try this like experiment and see what happens. And I am still that kid. Like, I'm still that kid at heart. I'm still that artist at heart that wants to like make the world a better place and hope that everybody follows suit. You know, I'm still that curious kid that asks a bunch of questions, but now instead of asking all the questions, I go out into the world and I'm curious and I actually experience it, you know? I'm still that person. And I'm also still sensitive in that way. Like, I have thicker skin because I've been through more shit, but I'm still that person. I haven't let the stuff that we've been through harden me. You know, you ever meet people, sometimes it's like, damn, like they allowed life to harden them. You know, and it's sad to see that. Like, I never want life to harden me. I want to still approach it, business, creativity, community building, you know, family. I still want there to be a sense of play, because if not, then what are you doing it for?
Oh, that's beautiful. What advice do you have for Black women who are aspiring to become expats?
I mean, I'm big on just do it. I think shit's a little bit different right now, even from like a couple weeks ago.
Right.
You know, my general advice is I tell people to put fear in their back pocket just long enough to get on the plane. You know, because that's, you know, once you do that, it's kind of like the pseudo point of no return. And thus, you know, you kind of just like, okay, buck up, like, this is what it is, let's do it. And I've been in that situation 3 times. I've been an expat 3 times. And so I get it. But with what's going on now, I would say don't let the world's fear become like your fear. I think that now's the time to be strategic. I think now's the time to have patience if that's what it calls for. It's not the best time to just pack your shit up and move. It just isn't right now. You know, I think now is a time for strategy. I think now is a time for saving. Excuse me. I think now is a time for community building in the place that you're looking to go to. I think people need community more now than any time in recent past, excuse me. I think it was a time to just get your ducks in a row so that on the other side of this, you can just blast off. But I would say don't let the world's fear right now, you know, paralyze you within your own fear, because it's very easy to allow that to happen right now, whether you're trying to be an expat or you're just trying to like make it through the day at this point. So I would be careful and be mindful of that.
That's good advice. So what projects are you currently working on, and where can people keep up with your journey?
Right. Well, people can definitely check out audacityfest.com. And you can sign up for the newsletter there to stay up to date on like what our moves are for the festival. But I think anybody who is of color that is really in the travel sphere and is looking for like that in-person community, we more than doubled our attendance last year. We had over 500 people show up, and we're scaling for over 1,000 this year. Like, it's really to move, and it's just a beautiful vibe with amazing content and informative programming. So I would definitely keep your eyes at audacityfest.com for the updates with that for 2020 and into the future. I am working on my personal podcast, which is going to be wrapped around, there's a hashtag that I've been using for years, Real Life Evie. And I'm going to be putting that to use as well. And I'm going to be garnering that on like pushing that pretty much on Instagram and other podcast platforms. We do have a resurgence of some media stuff. I was actually supposed to be in Africa shooting almost the entire month of April, but given everything that's going on, we're grounded. So until that gets back up, I won't really speak on it. But just know that this is definitely a year of content creation for us, both within and on the outside of the community base. And so, you know, as those projects, you'll be able to follow us at NOMADNESS Tribe on Instagram and Twitter. And yeah, you know, kind of take it from there, but just keep eyes on. Everybody's in a transitional period right now. So I think like we all have had stuff that's been like, you know, happening. And now it's like, okay, what's of a priority at this moment? You know, what's online? You know, I've been building out a course on creating community. So that's going to drop before the end of the year as well. So yeah, those are kind of the things that I'm working on. And if you want to reach me personally, I am at Evie Robbie on Instagram and Twitter, and my personal website is evitarobinson.com.
Wow, thank you so much for your time. I'm glad that African Wi-Fi relented for this interview to take place. Thank you.
I said I wasn't going to say nothing. But y'all about to get on my nerves. Y'all really are. Church is canceled. Church is canceled. Please do not reach out unto me. Do not reach out unto me. And I know a lot of y'all want to gather cyberly. You're cyberly gathering. That's fine. Please do not send me an invitation. I will not be in attendance. They say when 2 or 3 are gathered, I am gathered already, guys. Me, myself, and we're gathered. Okay? I don't know why y'all cyberly gathering. You can't touch and agree on nothing because it ain't no touching. You ain't supposed to be touching one another. So now y'all just agreeing. Y'all all cyberly gathering, agreeing. Just know whatever y'all believing for, I'm believing with y'all, okay? Know that I'm believing with y'all. And I also want to say this too. I'm not downloading the church's app. I'm not paying and downloading that app. I don't have room on my phone to see you and First Lady in the office reading scriptures to one another. I will not do it. I do not have time unto myself. I am busy sleeping and looking out the window and eating and going to eat some more.
Anyone else have a word from the Lord, a testimony of God's goodness?
I have a word from the Lord on today. The world as we know it is changing. And that means that we must change also. This global pandemic is causing economies to crash. National social agendas are being restructured and reconsidered. Work and the new landscape of telecommuting to your job. Our levels of empathy, whole industries being decimated. Our ability to move freely, everything has changed just like that. And it's really about to be survival of the fittest out here. My prayer for Black people especially is that we level up as much as possible in these times. Spiritually, physically, mentally, that great trifecta. The world is being reset, therefore we must reset also. Our great ancestor, philosopher, writer, and seemingly prophet, James Baldwin, warned us of this time some 40 years ago. And I shall leave you with his words. God bless.
I'm not convinced that the machine is going to resolve so many problems. I know that we've got to confront, I think, the fact that if we don't share the earth, we're going to blow it up. I think we have to rethink everything we think is true now, because it's not going to be true tomorrow. The question supposes a future which is more or less coherent and which is safe. But in fact, the moral choice we have yet to make does not guarantee that anyone in this room has a future. And the only way we can accommodate ourselves to that is to rethink and recreate our vocabulary, which includes the human race. We are all in this room at the mercy of, whether or not we know it, the European vision of the world. And that vision is obsolete.
Shout out to our Patreon members. Thank you so much for your support. If you too are interested in supporting the Black Broads Abroad movement, keep up with us on social media, and that's at Black Broads Abroad, BlackBroadsAbroad, and that's on IG and Facebook. And if you're interested in supporting on Patreon, visit www.patreon.com/Black Broads Abroad.